Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
That should not have been started. What's that one behind her?
As the children can say
Okay, good evening, everyone. Today we are going to be discussing the organs of government, and as we all know, one of the key focus for WAEC and JAMB government is the organs of government. You cannot escape it. It is one of the very basic. It is a very basic topic in government. And so without any further ado, I'm going to start. I would like to be sure that you're hearing me. So please, can we all confirm that you're hearing me? If you can hear me, please, you can raise your hand. Can you raise your hand if you can hear me? Okay, good, Mr. Joshua, I can see. All right, so that means you can hear me. All right, so like I said, as we all know, the government is one of the basic requirements, one of the basic required topic that you can hardly miss. In fact, there's no how you will not get questions on WAEC on organs of government. So what are the organs of government? Before I start, let me say that the organs of government is different from the forms of government, and is different from the levels of government. The organs of government are the organs or are the structures within which a government work. So for organ of government, there are just three of them. We have the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. The legislative arm of government, the executive arm of government, and the judiciary arm of government. So each and every one of them has a function that they do. And so it is very important for us to know the functions of these arms of government, the types, if any. That's going to be the focus of this discussion. Also the structure, and also the composition and membership. I'll also be discussing the function. I'll also be discussing the powers and their limitations. So I start. Let's start with the legislature. The legislature is the arm of government with the primary objective of lawmaking. The legislature is very responsible for the enactment of laws, which gets back into government policies and guide interactions between the government and the governed. I take it again. So the legislature is the arm of government with the primary objective of lawmaking. So it is very important for you to know one expression that you can use to describe the legislature is what? Lawmaking. Legislative makes the law. So it is very key. If the questions come that what is the primary role or primary function of the legislative arm of government, or if the question is which arm of government is responsible for making law, we all know and agree that it is the what? The legislative arm of government, or the legislature. the legislature or the legislative arm of government. And so moving forward, what are the types of legislative arm of government? So the types that we have the unicameral legislature and the bicameral legislature. A unicameral legislature is the type of legislature where there is only one arm making the law and existing in the country. It is common, this type of legislature is common in small countries, and it is largely characterized by a very little amount of lawmaking prowess. So we have seen countries like Ghana, Gambia, Kenya, Sierra Leone. You discover that these countries are relatively small compared to Nigeria. So also the structure of the legislature. Currently in Nigeria, we operate a bicameral legislature, which is made up of two houses. We have the Senate and the House of Assembly. The Senate and the House of Assembly. The House of Senate currently consists of 108 senators representing different federal senatorial districts, while the House of Representatives consists of about 360 rep members representing about 360 federal constituencies. So that is the type of legislature that we have in Nigeria. Please, if you are following this lecture, please just raise your hand so that I can confirm that you are listening to me and I am being heard. You can also type in the chat box that you can hear me and confirm that you can hear me. All right, so moving forward, I'll go straight to the next point of call, which is the functions, the particular functions of the arm of government. So basically, the functions of the legislature is to educate, primarily is to make law. The very first function of the legislature is to make law, one. Number two, to educate the public through debates. There are always debates going on the floor of the House with regards to laws and policies of the country. And so one of the functions of the legislature is to make laws and also educate the public through debates. So also we go ahead to talk about another function, which is the regulatory functions. The legislature also they have regulatory function in the sense that they regulate the actions and inactions of certain government parastatals and agencies. And so also they have some of their constitutional power is to amend the constitution. They have the power to also impeach heads of states, and also they exercise the function of check and balance. So, and also last but not the least, they evaluate government activities. So I'm going to take it again. Number one, they make law. Number two, they educate the public through debate. Number three, they monitor and evaluate government activities. Number four, they do regulatory functions of government agencies. Number five, they have the power to amend the constitution and other laws of the federation. Number six, they have the power to impeach the head of state. And number seven, they have the oversight function, that is, they have the check and balance of the executive over the executives. So those are the functions of the legislature. Also at this point, okay, yeah, I think that will be all about the legislative arm of government. I move straight to the executive arm of government. The executive arm of government is the arm of government responsible for the day-to-day running, implementation, execution and enforcement of laws and policies made by the legislature or the legislative arm of government. So now, sorry, I beg your pardon. So the executive arm of government basically is responsible for the day-to-day running of the government, one. So from this definition itself, you can even derive the meaning, the function of the executive arm of government. So we have the day-to-day running of the government, they execute and enforce law and policies made by government. Those are the key main function of the executive arm of government. When we get to their functions, I will still explain better. Do we all understand? Please, if you understand, just type in the comment box so that I can know that you are with me. So moving forward, we'll go to the composition or the composition or the membership of the executive. And now this is where we now go to the levels of government. So just like I said earlier, organs of government is different from the levels of government and is different from the forms of government. So now under the executive arm of government, we now have the levels. The levels are the federal, the state, and the local level. I take it again. The organ of government is different from the levels of government. So we have when we're talking about the levels of government, we are talking about a subdivision or the composition of the executive as an arm of government. So the level of government, the level of the executive arm of government or the composition of the executive arm of government are the federal, the state, and the local. So the federal level consists of the president or the prime minister, as the case may be, the secretary to the government of federation, the ministers, the permanent secretaries, and directors of government agencies. At the state level, it consists of the governor, the deputy governor, head of service, commissioners, permanent secretaries, and directors of the state government agency. And also the local level consists of the chairman, the vice chairman, the secretary, local government directors, and heads of departments of the local government. So at the federal level, we have the president or the prime minister. At the state level, we have the governor and the deputy governor, or the deputy governor. And the local level, we have the chairman and the vice chairman. So I want you to understand that when you are discussing the levels of government, the uniqueness of each level is that the federal government is headed by the what? It's headed by the president, while the state government is headed by the who? The governor, and the local government is headed by who? The local government is headed by the chairman. So that is the levels of government that we have. And so in this case, the federal government, the president is usually elected through the electoral process, and he is the chief of the state or the head of government, heading the executive council. The executive branch is also divided into several, for ease of regulation and ease of day-to-day running of government activity. The federal government divides, the federal government administers the federation through the use of ministries, agencies, and other structures within the federal power. Moving forward, we want to talk about the types of, the types of executives. Okay, well, the types of executive, basically, there are certain types of executives that are relative, but I don't think for the purposes of WAEC and JAMB, I don't think you need the types of executives. So we'll move to the functions of executives. So you might want to take your biro and paper again at this point. The functions of the executive include enforcement of the law, the day-to-day running activities of the government, just like I said from the definition. Also, we have Also, we have the appointment and making function. We also have the defense, war, and peace function. For example, it is the executive arm of government that is responsible for the defense, the welfare, and the security of lives and properties in the country or in the federation. Also, there's something called delegated legislation. So the federal government also do legislate. They also do some kind of legislative. They perform some legislative functions, which is called delegated legislation. So certain government agencies regulate certain activities in the country, and so some of this regulation stems from the executive. So, and also, last but not the least, policy making function. So I take it again. Number one, enforcement of law. The functions of the executive arm of government is to enforce law. Number one, perform the day-to-day running of the government. Number two. Number three, they appoint and they do some appointment functions, like they appoint judges, they appoint directors, they appoint ministers, and so on and so forth. Number four, defense, war, and security function. They are responsible for what? The security and welfare of the nation. And last but not the least, they have delegated legislative function. That is, they make policies. So those are the functions of the executive government. Again, before we move forward, I've been able to define the executive arm of government as the arm of government that sees to the day-to-day running of the government. And I've also been able to tell you that the levels of the executive are divided into three: the federal, the state, and the local government. And also I've been able to highlight the various functions of government, of the various functions of the executive arm of government. So now moving forward to the next point of call, we have the judiciary. So, okay, I think I should have been projecting my screen anyways, but it's just a resource material. Let me see if I can project my screen. Okay. Okay, yeah, I believe we can all see my screen. Okay, so we're talking about the judiciary now. The judiciary is the third arm of government responsible for the interpretation and application of law, and the judiciary is made up of the judges and the scouts of law. Well, you might want to remove that. The judiciary is the third arm of government, and it is responsible for the interpretation and application of the law. So, just like I said, for all the arms of government, you will be able to see their functions from their definition. So the functions of the judiciary now. We have the functions of the judiciary as follows. One, they give justice to people and punish offenders of law. Number two, they interpret and apply the laws. Number three, they are the guardians of the Constitution. Number four, they are the protectors of the fundamental human rights. Number five, they are responsible for the judicial administration of the country. Number six, they advise both arms of government. They perform advisory functions to both the executive and the legislature, I mean, and also they conduct judicial inquiries. So like the NSAS protest, I'm sure we're all familiar with what happened after NSAS, where a lot of judicial panel of inquiries were established. This is one of the functions of the judiciary. So I take it again. What is the judiciary arm of government? The judiciary arm of government is that arm of government that is responsible for the interpretation and application of the laws of the country. And moving forward, we go to the structure of the Nigerian judiciary, of course. So the structure of the Nigerian judiciary is such that we have the highest level of judiciary is the Supreme Court, which is administered by the Chief Justice of Nigeria and the NJC. I don't want to bore you with the legal jargons, but I want you to know that in Nigeria, this is the structure of the judiciary. We have the Supreme Court, we have the Court of Appeal, we have the Federal High Court, the State High Court, Magistrate Court, Customary Courts, and Sharia Courts. So take note that the Federal High Court, State High Court, and Sharia Courts, the Sharia Court of Appeal are all on the same level. So the leader of the judiciary is what? The Chief Judge or the Chief Justice of Nigeria. I forgot to mention the leader of the legislature is the Senate President, followed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives. You know, I said we have two legislature we run in Nigeria. Also, for the executive, I've already said it, that the executive is led by the what? The president in the case of federal, the governor in the case of the states, and the chairman in case of the local government. So that is that about that. Then the function of the judiciary, we've already stated the functions of the judiciary from their definition. So we now proceed to the other ancillary matters that relates with the three arms of government. So I think at this point I want us to do some quiz and some question and answering, so that I'll be able to throw more light in the areas that are in the three areas. So I think we can, if there is no noise where you are, please unmute yourself, so that I will be throwing some questions and you'll be answering. So I want us to interact. This is the interactive part of the class. All right, I can see Hawa. I can see Hosu Sewano. All right, Hosu Sewano, how are you? Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
All right. Did you follow the class from the beginning?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I have a quick question for you. Hold on. So the Nigerian police force is a part and parcel of which arm of the government? The Nigerian police force is a part and parcel of which arm of the government? Yes? I'm waiting. Mr. Sewano. Are you there? Okay, do we have any other person who wants to answer? Techno LC8. I can see you raised up your hand, so let me unmute you so you can talk. Okay, Lillian, do you want to answer that question?
Yes.
All right, so the Nigerian police force is a part and parcel of which arm of the government?
The executive.
The executive, that's good, brilliant. That is a very, very nice attempt. Well done, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, so also the next question is one of the functions of the judiciary. One of the functions of the judiciary, all except one is the functions of the judiciary. One, initiating public policy. 2, B, deliberating on important policy. 3, checking other arms of government. And 4, implementing public policy. I take it again. Okay, I think I should just project the screen. I have a quiz here that we can quickly take. Where is it? Yeah, so I believe we can all see my screen. One of the functions of the judiciary is what? I need somebody to answer the question. Someone, you want to attempt? Or Mr. David?
Yeah.
One of the functions of the judiciary is A, initiate public policy, B, deliberate on important policy, C, checking other arms of government, and D, implementing public policy.
C.
C,
C.
checking other arms of government. Correct, correct. That is a very nice one. Who was that?
Lillian.
Oh, Lillian, beautiful. The next question. The power to legislate is usually exercised by who? The power to legislate is usually exercised by who? Is it the executive, the judiciary, the parliament, the police, or the press? Who wants to answer the question? Lillian, okay. Lillian, you want to try again? What did you say? I can't hear you.
Yes, the executive.
The power to legislate is usually exercised by the executive. That is wrong. That is very, very wrong. You see, that is not correct. So, you want to try again? I said, when I was defining the legislative arm of government, I said they do what? They legislate or they make laws. So the legislature legislate and
okay.
Yes, so which is what? Now I think the legislature, but the closest word to it is what? The parliament. The legislature. Now this is a point for us to learn that the legislature is also referred to as what? The parliament. Okay, do we all get that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So, the National Assembly is the National Assembly is our own parliamentary house in the country. So that's it. Next, a law passed by the legislature and assented to by the executive is called. You might not know it, but does anybody want to try? Lillian, you want to try? Or David? Rose, do you want to try? Okay, don't let me disturb you too much. The answer to the question is an act. So, quick decision making is an advantage of what? You know, I told you that there are two types of legislature. We have the bicameral and the unicameral. So, also, in terms of the level of or the types of government, I think in terms of the levels of government and in terms of the structures of government, quick decision making is an advantage of what type of government? Who wants to try?
Okay. With the unicameralism.
Okay, let's try unicameralism. That's correct. So when there is just one legislature, it is always easier for them to do what? To make decisions very quickly. Okay, here's some sound. Rose, David. Okay, mute yourself. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, can the person mute himself? Joshua, if it's you, please try to mute yourself. Okay.
Oh, perfect. So let's go on. The organ of government responsible for the implementation of policies in a state is known as what? Definitely, I'm going to go for the executive, because one of the functions of the executive is what? Policy making. You can see that is the correct answer. The final stage, okay, of enacting a legislation. I didn't explain that. Also, the formation and implementation of policies are major duty of what? The formation and implementation of policies are the major duty of what? I can still hear some sound though. Okay. Nobody is saying anything. Executive is the correct answer. Also, bicameralism is adopted because that's against introducing prevent arbitrary project party manifesto is the only system available. It prevents arbitrary lawmaking. The standing, okay, I have not taught you this. Okay. Yeah. So I think for now that is our session. That will be all for our session on the organs of government. I'm now going to do a recap because we have about 8 minutes left to the end of this session. And also, if you have any question, feel free to type it in the box. I started this session by telling us that the organs of government are the different organs, are the parts of government that carries out specific function and makes up a government. And I also told you that the organs of government is different from the forms of government and is different from the levels of government. And I now go ahead to tell you that there are 3 organs of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. We started this session on the executive arm of government, on the executive as an organ of government, and I defined the executive to you. I started with the legislature, and I defined the legislature to you as that arm of government with the primary function of making law or legislating. So now the operative word when we are talking about the legislator is what? Lawmaking, law enactment, or legislating laws. So the name, the function and the definition derives from the name legislature. The legislator does what? They legislate. Or if you like, the legislature does what? They make law. The legislator also enacts law. And I also tell you that there are 2 types of legislator. We have the unicameral legislature and we have the bicameral legislature. Unicameral legislature is made up of 1 house, while the bicameral is made up of 2 houses, like we have in Nigeria, the Senate and the House of Representatives. I told you that the Senate has about 109 senators representing different senatorial districts, and we have 360 House of Representative members representing the different federal constituencies. I also told you the functions of the legislature is to 1, make law, 2, educate the public, 3, monitor and evaluate government's activities, 4, they have the power to amend the constitution, 5, they have the power to impeach the head of state, and 6, they perform oversight functions and check and balances on the executive arm of government. From there, we move forward to the executive arm of government, and I let you know that the executive arm of government is that arm of government that is responsible for the implementation, that is responsible for the day-to-day running of the government and responsible for the implementation of government of the law, the implementation of the law itself, and the implementation and enforcement of the law itself, and they also make policies. And I also told you that the executive arm has different levels. The federal level headed by the president, the state level headed by the governor, and the local level headed by the chairman and vice chairman. And also, I told you that the functions, okay, I've already mentioned the functions of the executive. So the functions of the executive include: number one, day-to-day running of the governance; two, enforcement of law; three, appointment. They have the power to appoint judges, appoint ministers, appoint heads, directors, and heads of other government agency. Number five, defense, war, peace, and security. You can merge them together. Security, welfare, defense. It is the executive that perform these functions. Number six, we have policy making functions. They are responsible for making policy. And also number seven, they have delegated legislative functions. From there, we move to the judiciary, and I let you know that the judiciary is a third arm of government, and it is responsible for what? The interpretation and application of law, and it is made up of judges. And I told you about the functions of the judiciary. The number one function of the judiciary, like I said, is to give justice to the people and punish offenders of law. Number two, interpret and apply laws. Number three, they are the guardian of the Constitution. Number four, they are the protectors of the fundamental human rights. Number five, they run the judicial administration of the country. And number six, they perform advisory functions. They advise other arms of government. And last but not the least, they conduct judicial inquiry. I think this is, and I told you that the structures of the Nigerian judicial system is that we have the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, the Federal High Court, the State High Court, the Magistrate Court, and the customary courts. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I think we have come to the end of this class.
Sorry. I think I have a question, and I don't know if any other person has a question to ask.
We have 2 minutes left.
Okay. The question is about the senatorial district. How do they appoint, or how do senators represent each, or what is it called? How do we come about 109 senators?
Okay, so for how we come about 109 senators is that we have the different senatorial districts. Majorly for every state in Nigeria, there are 3 senatorial districts, which are divided into maybe the north, south, and the central, or the east, west, and the central, depending on the states. So the senators are elected through the electoral process, the universal adult suffrage, or if you like, the people come out to contest for that position, and the masses vote for their choice candidates. So we have 36 states in the federation, and so we have 33. Okay, we have 3 senators plus 1 senator from the Federal Republic, from the Federal Capital Territory. So we have 109. So I'm not too good with maths, but I know if you multiply 3 by 36, I think it should be giving you 108 plus 1 from the Federal Capital Territory. And the same thing goes for the House of Representatives. I think for each state, we have about 10 federal constituency for each state. I'm not so, I think, yes, we have 10 federal constituencies, and the House of Representative members are elected to represent these federal constituencies. So is there any other question?
Not from me, thank you. Is there another question from the students?
Okay, all right, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I look forward to seeing you by the next class. The next class, by the grace of God, we are going to be discussing the state structure and the characteristics of government, the state structure and the characteristics of government. So thank you very much for your rapt attention. I'm going to see you next week. The organizers of this event, the JCSF Support Foundation, I thank you for the opportunity, and we're going to upload this on our YouTube channel for ease of reference. Thank you, and God bless you all. Can we stop recording?